Okay, so have you ever felt like completely trapped by societal expectations?
Oh, absolutely, all the time.
Well, today's deep dive might just make you feel, well, maybe a little bit better about those anxieties, maybe. We're going to be looking at this film, The Devil's Bath.
Ooh, okay.
It takes us back to 18th century Germany and Austria.
Okay.
Not exactly known for being super cheerful places.
Right.
And our source material is a film review, and let me tell you, it's intense.
Okay.
Get ready for some seriously bleak landscapes, stifling religious dogma, and this young bride named Agnes who is going through the worst possible time.
Sounds heavy.
It is.
Well, you know what I find really captivating about The Devil's Bath, at least from the review, is how it blends that historical reality, right? The reality of life in that era with these elements of classic folk horror. It's not just about, cheap thrills and jump scares, right? The Devil's Bath really seems to delve into the character's psychological torment. And that leaves you with this lingering sense of dread, almost claustrophobia.
Yeah, the review uses words like harrowing and visceral, even unsettling. What is it specifically that creates this atmosphere? And what did you find most effective in kind of conveying that feeling?
Well, the setting itself is almost like a character, I mean, really picture 18th century Germany and Austria, the harsh living conditions, the pervasive superstition, and the overwhelming power of the church, of religious doctrine. The filmmakers use all of that to cultivate this sense of inescapable dread. Agnes is trapped, there's this feeling that society is closing in on her.
And, that sense of being trapped, it's something that a lot of people can relate to today, I think. Maybe not in such a literal sense, but the pressure to conform, to follow these, societal expectations. These feelings are definitely still relevant, but it's not just the setting, is it? The review also mentions the film's visual style, especially the use of natural light and these really long, almost uncomfortably long shots.
Yes. And those long shots, they often bathe everything in this really stark natural light. It creates this feeling even the camera is holding its breath. It really pulls the viewer into Agnes's world. It's almost documentary-like, and that makes it all the more disturbing in a way.
And speaking of Agnes, the review raves about Anja Plaschg's performance, calling it haunting and quietly intense. And that's particularly interesting when you consider her background, right?
Absolutely. So Anja Plaschg, she's actually better known as the musician Sopenskin.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and her music tends to be pretty dark, pretty experimental. So she brings this pre-existing intensity, this kind of otherworldly quality, to the role. And the fact that this is her first starring film role, that just adds another layer of intrigue, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And this review isn't alone in its praise. The Devil's Bath has a 4.5 out of 5 rating on MovieKaTicket. Some are even calling it a masterpiece. And that's not something you hear every day, especially for a horror film, especially one that goes into such dark places. What do you think it is about this film that elevates it, above your typical horror fare?
For me, it's the depth, the way it goes beyond simple jump scares and gore. This is thought-provoking horror, right? The kind that sticks with you long after it's over. The review specifically talks about how the film reflects on societal and personal traumas, and that makes it resonate on a whole other level.
Yeah. And speaking of trauma, there's that one scene, the one everyone seems to be talking about, the execution scene. The review describes it as one of the most chillingly authentic moments in recent cinema.
Yeah.
And they use 400 extras for it, which is a huge undertaking. Do you think there's a risk in making something so brutal, so visually compelling? Could it be seen as almost glorifying the violence?
That's a really good point. It is a delicate balance, isn't it? I think the key is in the film's overall message and its intent. If the violence serves a greater purpose, if it forces viewers to confront the horrors of the past, to examine how they might still be echoing in our present, then it can be a powerful tool, a tool for reflection. Imagine yourself in that crowd witnessing a public execution in the 18th century. The sheer spectacle of it, the brutality, it taps into something primal, I think. A collective memory of human cruelty.
So in the end, The Devil's Bath is really a film about isolation, right? It's about mental anguish and the search for religious salvation, I guess, and also the limited agency of women in that era. It's a film that makes you appreciate how far we've come, as a society.
Yes, but it also makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you ask, well, what are the modern day equivalents of those anxieties? Are there ways in which we, or people we know, still feel similarly trapped by societal pressures, by expectations, or by the systems we live in. That's what I think is so powerful about The Devil's Bath. It takes us on this journey into the past, but in the end, it's really holding up a mirror to our present.
Definitely food for thought. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into The Devil's Bath. Join us next time when we'll be
exploring
the dark side of
suburban gardening.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.